Alright everyone, well this week I thought we'd do something kind of fun with a tool that's, quite powerful but very seldom is used, and I think it's because when it was initially introduced it did some very cool things, but I think people didn't really catch on very well, and it's the vanishing point filter inside Photoshop, and it's a very powerful feature once you understand it and can use it. Now, one of the big advantages of the newer vanishing point is that you can apply an image to multiple planes, and here's what I mean. Here we have an image of a building, and I want to put this mock movie poster on the side of it. Maybe you've probably seen in large cities they'll hang the banners or even put window graphics in the windows and make up an entire image on the side of a building. That's for a movie promotion or things like that. So we're going to fake it right here in Photoshop on this image here, and we're going to do it using vanishing point. Now, this building isn't in any real severe perspective that you'd initially look at it and go, well, it doesn't really need vanishing point, but it does have multiple surfaces here. As you can see, there's a plane here, and there's a little incropping here, and then a little part of the building there. So we're going to wrap this graphic around those windows using vanishing point. So with this image selected, let's go under filter to vanishing point. Now, here's what I needed to do first. I need to put this poster in my clipboard in order to be able to bring that. But just in case you don't, here's what I'm going to show you a quick little trick, just in case you don't remember to do that. Let's go right into vanishing point. I'm going to go under filter to vanishing point, and it will open up this giant window here. And we're going to be starting with the grid tool, of course, and I'm just going to start by drawing a plane on this right here. So I'm going to click once, and we'll go down here, and we're not going to go all the way down to the bottom of the building because we don't need to. And I'm going to click and define that plane there, and it will give me that grid line. And if you want, the grid to be bigger or smaller, you can change it here, just in case, depending on what kind of work you're doing. So there I've got that one grid. Now I'm going to have to draw another plane. I'm going to hold down my command key. That would be the control key on a PC, and you see we get the little icon here. I can just grab a handle here and just start going out. Now you can see it's not going in the right direction. It's actually coming out toward us, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and that will give me those swinging arrows here. And I'm just going to drag around and swing it in the other direction so it's lined up. Now it does get a little tricky. Let me position it right about there. And you can see I'm lined up with that little line here. And I'm just going to grab the handle and push it in because we're only coming in a little bit on that little part right here until it meets this other window, in which case we need to drag out another plane. So I'm going to hold down the command key, drag it out to about that point there. Now if you defined your initial grid correctly, every time you draw a new plane should draw and line up nicely. Minus, depending on if there's really unusual angles, you'll have to adjust it with the Option key and turn it like I did. So let's go ahead and draw out the last plane, which is, I'm just going to grab that Command or Control key, click on here, and go over here. Now you can see it's drawing that plane way far back. So let's Option Alt and then swing it out and use those grid lines to line up, the blue grid lines to line up with the windows here. And once it's lined up, we'll just push this in so it lines up with that edge. So we've drawn our plane. It's covering this area of windows. This tiny area here is going back. This little area is just coming out a little bit, and then we've got this front plane here. So there's our grid. Well, as I said before, I need to have something in the clipboard in order to be able to bring it into the vanishing point window and apply it to something, which we didn't do. But I've gone ahead and gone through the trouble of drawing this grid, and I don't want to have to do it again. I'm thinking at this point, oh man, I didn't put my image on the clipboard. Well, fear not, because if I hit OK, I don't see anything change on my image. But, extra layer there. But, here's the thing. That vanishing point grid didn't go anywhere, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. I'm going to go to this image that we're going to apply, and I'm going to do a select all. I'm going to press Command or Control A, and I go under Edit, Copy, and that will place that image into the clipboard. Let's go back to our original image, and let's go back into the vanishing point. Go under Filter, Vanishing Point, and lo and behold, that grid will remain. Now, if I had canceled out of vanishing point earlier, then the grid would have been gone. I would have had to have redrawn it. But if you hit OK, it doesn't see any change, but it does remember the last grid you drew. So important little trick there. So now that we've got that image in our clipboard, I'm going to press Command or Control V to paste it in there. And it obviously has come in very large, so I'm going to hit press Command or Control T to scale it. And let's bring it in just a little bit there. Now, when I grab it and move it, you can see it's two-dimensional. It's just flat on my screen here. When I drag it into the grid plane here, watch what happens. Once my cursor crosses over, now the image is wrapping around all those multiple planes. Watch this little point here as I drag it. It's conforming to the edge. It appears to be conforming to the contour of the building, where in fact it's just conforming to that grid we drew based on the contour of the building. And this is the advantage of the new vanishing point, is that before you were only able to apply an image to one plane at a time. It wasn't able to cross over the planes like this. That's a very cool feature. So I'm actually going to scale this down a little bit more. And let's put that right about there. So that's very cool. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, here's another little point. Another little trick to know. Now that I've applied it, it looks good on there, except it's on my layer. It's on my background layer. It's flattened. Now I don't want that. I want that it's on its own layer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to Command and Control Z to undo that. And I'm just going to create a new blank layer. Now let's go back in there and go to Vanishing Point. And no, I'm not just messing up over and over. I think these are critical to show you that these little pitfalls you may run into using Vanishing Point, because a lot of people I have talked to tell me they have all these issues. It doesn't work. It doesn't do that. This is why. It's these little tiny little tricks that get you past that. So let's go ahead and bring that image back in here and scale it in. Let's drag it into my grid. So I'm doing all the same things I just did a minute ago, but when I hit OK, now that distorted image is on its own layer. So now I can do whatever I want. So I want to blend this into the building. I don't want it to look like it's a banner hanging on the building. I actually want it to look like maybe it's printed on the glass, or it's decals that are on the glass, which means it would show reflections of the glass from the daylight. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to load that channel or that layer as a selection by Command or Control clicking on it. And then I'm going to highlight that background layer. And I'm just going to press Command or Control J to copy that selected area on its own layer. So I turn all my layers off. That's all I've done. I've copied an area that's the same area as that poster, and then copied it on its own layer. Let's turn all these layers back on. I'm going to drag that over that poster image. So our poster image will appear to have disappeared because that copied layer is covering it. But here's what I'm going to do. That layer selected, I'm going to remove the color information first by pressing Shift-Command-U. That would be Shift-Control-U on a PC, and it will remove the color information, making that more grayscale. Then I'm going to change the blend mode of this layer to hard light, and watch what will happen. Boom. Takes on the lighting of that image and makes it look like that poster is actually printed on the windows, or it's, decals right on the windows. So we're getting that daylight that's reflecting on this plane of glass here. It looks realistic and blends in nicely. So you can see using Vanishing Point is not nearly as intimidating as it might seem. So as long as you're aware of those little pitfalls that I went over there, you'll be able to work efficiently in there too. And then taking a piece of a layer and then giving it a lighting effect, giving you a realistic poster right on the side of that building.